Over the years, I've helped a lot of addicts work through their substance abuse through the help of psilocybin mushrooms. But today, I'm not talking about a substance addiction. I'm talking about one that is much more insidious, one that is perhaps even more dangerous because it can't be scheduled, it can't be seen, it can't be held. It's a perspective. That perspective is victimhood. If you hang out with me to the end, we're going to explore how victimhood becomes addictive and what we can do to escape the throes of this addiction. Now, yes, psilocybin mushrooms are an incredibly useful and powerful tool in overcoming addiction. But if there's anything that I have learned over the years, it's that the mushrooms are simply a catalyst to help you make the choice to become the person that you truly desire to be. And I want to ask you, be really honest with yourself here. Do you want to be a victim? Do you want to blame the system for all of your problems? Do you want to blame your childhood or your mother or past relationships for the current state of your life? Well, if you don't, then this conversation's for you. If you do, hang out and maybe you'll have a change of perspective before it's all said and done. I have worked with some very successful victims, CEOs, corporate managers, people at high levels of business, entertainment, a variety of different fields. Your position in life, the success that you've achieved, doesn't indicate whether you are or aren't playing a victim necessarily. And that may come as a surprise to you. It certainly has to me. When I look back at my own life, I can see that there have been, and sometimes still are, times and places where I play the victim. This is something that we have to be very aware of because it is, as I said, quite insidious. It's built into our culture. We want to look at the past and say that it is why we are like this in the present. And of course, there is influence. Of course, we cannot be responsible for the actions of others. We can only be responsible for our own perspective and our own actions in this moment right now. You see, victimhood is not about circumstance. It's about where we allocate power. And as long as we continue to put power outside of ourselves, then we will continue to be the victim. Now, you can look through history and see any number of amazing individuals who refused to play victim even when they could have. Great civil rights leaders from around the world have exemplified this. And I like to think that even myself have at times. In 2015, when I was arrested, I could have very easily played the victim and took up a different path in life. As a matter of fact, everyone around me was encouraging me to do so. I knew the risks that I was taking when I was working on the underground with psilocybin mushrooms. I knew the risks that I was taking when I was selling psilocybin mushrooms. The thing is, though, particularly with selling them, I didn't want to do it. I allowed someone else to influence me to do so. And I could have, especially then, played the victim. It's their fault. They're the one that told me to sell mushrooms. Nobody cares. Everybody cares what you're doing. And had I done that, had I continued to blame the system, blame the laws, blame the people around me, then I would still be stuck. Instead, though, by the grace of God, some higher power, I was inspired to take that energy and use it to fuel my passion for bringing psilocybin wellness to the world. After our arrest and going through the sentencing and arriving at a D felony, I continued to do my work in Jamaica. Not only that, while on probation for 2 years, I continued to smuggle mushrooms to Jamaica to run those retreats. Now, I knew, again, the risk that I was taking. And I was ready to take full responsibility if it was revealed. Now, I am in no way encouraging illegal behavior. Please do not. It was incredibly unwise for me to do that. In retrospect, I probably would not do it again. But I felt so passionately that these mushrooms need be available to the public because they are incredible healers, as we're already seeing. So when I was arrested and I lost all my friends and I had no money and I didn't know how I was going to continue the work that I felt called to do, I asked myself, and I asked my higher power, now what? Now what do I do with this? Do I wallow in it, or do I take this as an opportunity to double down on my passion and move forward. Well, that story is already written, and here we are. I've also worked with hundreds of people over the years who have had a similar perspective, the most powerful being those who are victims of sexual abuse. Now, I don't want anybody to mistake this for any kind of victim blaming. There are absolutely horrible acts that are perpetuated by abusers. I have been subject to some of those as well myself. And those who recover from those horrifying circumstances, they ask themselves the same question. That was then, this is now, and now, what do I do? Do I continue to be a victim? Do I continue to blame others for my circumstances? Or do I take this moment on and move forward in a way that is empowering to me, that brings the power back into my own life through my own perspective and through my own actions? When we think about addictions, we think about compulsive behavior, things that we're compelled to consume because they make us feel a certain way. But negative emotions and negative perspectives can absolutely be addictive. What are the addictive qualities of victimhood? Well, first of all, someone else gets to take the blame. It's not your responsibility if you're the victim, right? It's all being done to you. There's also the fact that we don't have to change anything when we're the victim. Oh, my circumstances are so bad. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm just a victim. And it's a hard reality to face that we, unfortunately, very often are the single greatest limitation for our own lives. I've been there. I've done that. I've been a procrastinator at times. I've put off things that I knew that needed to be done. And it's still something that we all face every single day. I don't think there's hardly anybody out there who just immediately always does the thing that needs to be done, who feels completely empowered all the time. It's so easy to look outside and see the laws, the government, the school system, any number of things, your family history. There's all kinds of fingers that we can point at the way things are or the way we are. But that is not helpful. It is the greatest limitation for helping us bring into being the life and the world that we truly desire to see. When you play the victim, there's no risk involved. As I was saying with my experience in Jamaica, traveling with those mushrooms over the years, if I would have played the victim, then I would have never taken that risk. But it was that risk that allowed me to succeed. And again, I am not encouraging you to take such a drastic risk. There are small risks that we can take every day that allow us to step out of the role of victim. Perhaps it's not spending money on wasteful things. Perhaps it is forgiving someone in your life who did you harm. Perhaps it's letting go of something you've been holding on to for years and realizing that yes, it happened, but now you get to be the creator of your life rather than being subject to someone else's will. I know. There's many situations that are very difficult to be in. And you can look through history and see incredible examples of individuals who refused to play the victim and became heroes for this world. One of my favorite, I've studied this man for many years, continue to, is Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was enslaved. Can you imagine? He was property. He was hunted down when he escaped. But you know how he escaped the real prison of victimhood, which he lived in for years? If you read his autobiography, he talked about for quite some time. He saw himself as merely a victim. And then some divine spark finally glowed within him. And he tricked a young boy into teaching him how to read. Frederick Douglass became one of the greatest international speakers of his time. He is a shining example of someone who played the victim for a while, realized his own God-given power, and through his perspective, took that back. He ended up giving one of the most incredible speeches to Congress on the 4th of July, a chiding reprimand for the horrors of slavery. It is amazing and beautiful. And had he continued to stay in victim mode, that would have never happened. And you can bet that there have been millions of people who have benefited from his breaking the shackles of victimhood. Now, what about you? Where in your life do you find yourself playing the victim? I'm going to be honest with you. This video today, I almost didn't record it. Ironic as that is, because timing didn't work out, things didn't come together. It still feels a little rushed, but I'm not going to play the victim. I'm not going, especially now. How could I play the victim when I have just written a script, written an outline for a podcast about victimhood? I could have very easily done it. I sat up there and cleaned the kitchen for a while and said, I'm just not going to do this podcast. I'm not going to go record. And then, you know what? I thought to myself, I felt myself in my stomach. Eric, is this the example that you want to set for the world? Because it's the little things that we do when people aren't even looking that make the difference. Where is it in your life that someone may not see that you're playing the victim, and yet you do? Is it something little around your home with your spouse? Is it somewhere with your children or your parents? That certainly can be the case very easily. Another payout that we get from the addiction of victimhood is that we don't have any responsibility. It's not mine, not my baby. Well, it is, as a matter of fact. If it's your life, it's your responsibility. If it's your perspective, it's your responsibility. I think back to my arrest. I know I talk about this quite a bit, but it was incredibly formative in my life. I think back to the time when I was in the jail for a week. And if there is anything that I could do differently, I would go back in that time and I would have constant knowing that it was working in my favor. Now, that is a very challenging perspective to take, especially when you're locked behind bars. And there are some of you out there who maybe have family in similar circumstances. My heart goes out to all those individuals. But I want to encourage us all to have faith, because eventually we find out that our victimhood becomes a prison perhaps even worse than one made of concrete and steel. Because as a victim, you never get to live the life you were meant to live. You never get to be the person you were meant to be in this world. Psalms 82 tells us that you are all God's. Now, I don't take that as a metaphor. Literally, you have the power of the Creator within you. And it starts with perspective. It starts by choosing how you see the world. I've said this in multiple videos. I'll keep saying it. Albert Einstein asked or said the most important question that we can ask is whether or not we see the universe as a friendly place. That is a very important reflection. Why would one of the smartest and most intelligent human beings on the face of this planet say that that is one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves? It disarms the victim mentality almost immediately. If we see the world as a friendly place, then even the most despised politician, the most despicable circumstance, we can find a way to understand that it is working in our favor. Nelson Mandela is another incredible example. The people close to that man that turned on him, his own wife that turned on him, putting him in prison, and he came out to become the president of the very country that imprisoned him. I have chills just thinking about it. There are so many amazing examples. You can be one. You can be one of those examples. And it doesn't have to be huge and grandiose. Maybe you feel like making content. Maybe you feel like you have something powerful to say. Maybe there's a business that you want to start. Maybe there's something that you want to start in a company that you work. There's an initiative that you want to begin. Maybe in your children's school, there's something that you don't like that you would like to see different. Well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to continue to be the victim? Are you going to continue to say, I can't change this. I have no responsibility in the matter? If you do, then things will stay the same. But if you begin to see just a small place where you can have an impact, where you can step in there, influence, and perhaps it's just your perspective, perhaps it's just the way that you talk to the people that you meet. You go into the grocery store You go into the post office or wherever it is that you visit in your daily outings, and you meet people who are in a horrible mood, and maybe you feel negatively influenced. You feel a victim to this rude cashier. Does that have to be the case? Or can you take your perspective, smile at them, be kind to them, and perhaps change their world? See, in the teachings of Kabbalah, there is this way of looking at the world of life. We are either a cause or an effect in a situation. You do not ever want to be the effect. You always want to be the cause. There is some beautiful philosophical exploration that could happen here, and you see that in all effect comes back to cause. There is actually never an effect, or cause and effect are really just perspectives. It's like this discussion around the creation of the world, right? I love science. I read all kinds of scientific material, and science says we can explain everything except for the Big Bang, right? We can't tell you what caused that. It's always a perspective, cause or effect, from back to the very beginning. Now, I mentioned mushrooms as a component in helping this process of recovery, and they are powerfully that. It's very true. But mushrooms are a catalyst. They can allow you to shift perspective. They can allow you to see your circumstances and decide something different. And sometimes people take mushrooms and they dig deeper into their perspective of victimhood. Because you see, psychedelics are non-specific amplifiers. They don't care what they expand. They are going to expand whatever your focus is. And sometimes, oftentimes, we find ourselves focusing on the wrong thing, the painful thing, to the point where we realize we have to make a choice to escape, to get out of that perspective. And that's a beautiful thing. But if you're working with psilocybin or other plant medicines in order to shift your perspective, then I would strongly encourage you to begin working on changing that perspective. If you find yourself playing the victim and you don't want to, and you want to work with plant medicines and help to overcome that, then you're going to have to start working to shift that perspective. I worked with mushrooms for so many years, and honestly, I've been working to escape, to leave behind this perspective of victimhood up until the last year. I think there's still times that I find myself catching it coming up. I've had instances over and over again where individuals want to blame me for their I don't even know, the way that their life is unfolding. It's amazing. And I think this is just kind of a natural part of being someone that tries to help others. But I'm not the victim of that. I used to. This is the most recent thing that I've been working on over the years. I felt very much a victim to, a certain percentage of the people that I worked with and helped, because they weren't able to shift their perspective. They wanted to continue to blame the outside world. I was the one that was showing up regularly in their lives, so I got the blame, and it hurt. I felt myself a victim in those situations, and I realized that I was just doing the same thing that they were doing. So there is no more poor Eric. This is a perspective that I grew up hearing all of my life. Oh, poor Eric, he's got it so hard. No, that's not the case. You don't either. Sure, life's hard. There's challenges. We have things to overcome. But the first step in overcoming whatever obstacle it is shifting our perspective and realizing that we have endless resources. We have the light of the Creator within us. We are powerful beyond our wildest imagination. And every single time we tell ourselves or anyone else that we are subject to outside influence, that we are subject to circumstance, victims of circumstance, and we have dimmed that light. I want to reiterate, you are not responsible for what happens to you, but we are responsible for how we respond to what happens to us. And so, that is the perspective shift that I want us all to consider. What next? How can what's happening right now be of benefit to me? I promise you there's a way. Our car got stolen a few years ago. I woke up one February morning, looked outside, drinking my coffee, and this beautiful automobile that I just purchased was not there. I knew immediately what happened, and after about 2 weeks of searching, the police finally found it with bullet holes and guns left inside. It was a pretty ugly situation. I had worked very hard to purchase that automobile. Insurance could not cover the damages. There were no parts to fix it. This was my most favorite car I'd ever owned. And in the studies that I had been doing at the time and still continue to this day, I tried to find in the immediate moment, how is this happening for me? How am I not a victim in this moment? It's so easy to think that I am. Someone came onto my property, stole my car, used it in a robbing and shooting. How can I be to blame for any of this? How can I be responsible for any of this? Well, I wasn't. I was responsible with what I did with it. What did I do with it? I prayed. I sat. I allowed. I let the pain of my experience expand my vessel. And I continued to ask, what now? What do I do, God? What do I do with this? Creator, infinite wisdom, what do I do with this situation? And I was told to sit. I was told to wait and let it play out. So I did, and we got a fair amount of money for the car. Insurance paid us, not enough to buy another car, not one nearly as nice as that one anyway. And so we decided to work with one car for a while. It was very challenging with 2 kids and all the things that we have to do, but we did it. And what it allowed me to do over that winter was take some of that money and finally remodel the kitchen. Now, thankfully, I grew up in construction and I was able to do the remodeling myself. Tore out some walls, rewired things, replumbed things, moved the stove, and now we have a huge, spacious, wide open kitchen that we envisioned when we first moved into that house. So I completed that for a fraction of the cost of having someone else do it, using some of the money that came from the car. Then we began to look for another car. We were patient. We waited. I let my wife seek what she wanted, what she desired. And at a certain point on Facebook Marketplace, we found a used car that we actually now like even better than the new car that we had. Now, it took about 1.5 years for that to play out. I didn't think, I kept looking for the light. I kept asking throughout that 1.5 years, God, where is this working for me? How is this working for me? And eventually I found that it did. Now, I could have played the victim the entire time. Poor me, my favorite car got stolen. What am I going to do now? Instead, I picked up myself and I did what I wanted to do. I used my perspective, I used my action, and I brought into being the desire that I wanted to see. Now, I'm the hero in my story. I'm not trying to be the hero in your story. I'm telling this to encourage you. There is some way in any situation where you feel like you could be the victim, where you feel like life is happening to you, where you can switch that around and become empowered and understand that life is happening for you. The mechanism of evolution never fails. This amazing creation that we're in is always evolving towards greater connectivity, greater efficiency. Life is always on your side. Sometimes, especially when it doesn't seem like it. But you get to have the choice. You get to choose the perspective of being a victim or being the hero. I think you know what I want for you. And I think that's enough for this conversation right now. Thank you for joining me. I do hope that it's been valuable and that you will also be able to shift your perspective when the time arises and realize that you are not the victim. and that life is always on your side. Till the next time.